Parents gave younger brother $70,000 and a Tesla, while I ran the family business unpaid. I found the proof, lawyered up, and burned every bridge. I'm Eli. I'm 29. This is the story of how I eventually ceased being a family investment. My parents have always maintained an underlying rule. You only matter if you can help others. Not kind, not supportive, simply useful. Growing up, that meant taking on whatever duty was required. Babysitter, bookkeeper, and janitor. And eventually, when my father's back gave out and my mother felt she was too exhausted to deal with clients any longer, I took over as full-time operator of their family business. Not a co-owner or a partner, simply an unpaid laborer with a smile. It started little. Eli, can you update the invoices this weekend? Hey, can you answer a few calls while we're in Palm Springs? The result was, we've decided to extend our vacation. Can you handle payroll this month? And by the time I was 24, they were living in Cabo for half the year, and I was in charge of every client, email, and quarterly report. They told everyone they were semi-retired. They told me it was a fantastic opportunity, that I was building my future, and that it would all be mine someday. But it wasn't. When I tried to bring up the possibility of getting compensated, Mom would change the subject. We're housing you, aren't we? They let me reside in the basement where the ceiling is stripped every spring. When I approached Dad about putting my name on the LLC paperwork, he stated I needed to show that I could manage the responsibility. After 4 years of running the business alone, I inquired about a portion of the profits. Mom smiled and added, "You're not motivated by money, right? You're better than that." It wasn't only about business, it was everything. They wanted me to do housework, drive my sister's children to and from school, file my brother's taxes, and cover for them wherever they fell short. I missed my own college graduation because my parents had booked a last-minute flight to Costa Rica, and someone needed to be at work. I persuaded myself it was just temporary, that it would all be worth it in the end, and that being useful meant being loved. But then Christmas occurred. They had arranged a magnificent family meal like they always do. My brother Dylan flew in from Chicago. My sister brought her third spouse. I did the most of the setup, decorated the house, prepared the food alongside Mom, and ensured the driveway was plowed. By this point, I had given up on expecting thanks. I just done it. Dinner started off peacefully. Dylan discussed how fatigued he was from his new startup, which Dad had sponsored with a $70,000 present the year before. Nobody revealed that I was the one keeping the family business running. Nobody inquired how I was doing. And then Mom said it. It sprang out of nowhere between chunks of honey-glazed ham. She chuckled, looked directly at me across the table and said, "You're almost 30, Eli. It's time to stop leeching." The entire room became quiet. At first, I assumed I had misheard her. Then I waited for her to add the punchline. Some type of joke. But there wasn't one. She simply went on, pouring herself another glass of wine as if she hadn't just sucker-punched me in front of the whole family. Dylan chuckled. "Maybe he's hoping for an inheritance," he said, not looking at me. I did not speak. Not during the remainder of dinner. Not when giving out presents. I simply sat there, startled. I was stunned by how little they thought of me. How easy it was for them to portray me as a burden when I had almost given up my 20s for them. Later that night, I was going through my phone in the basement, still in a daze, when a new post from my mother appeared on Instagram. Dylan is pictured outside, grinning beside a brand new Tesla. There's a big red bow on top. The caption stated, "For always being there." Always being there. My hands were shaking. I was not angry. I was numb. Because at that point, everything clicked. They did not simply fail to appreciate me. They deliberately disliked me because I had made myself too convenient, predictable, and inconspicuous. That's when I made my decision. I strolled upstairs in silence, past the leftover pie and empty wine glasses. I entered Dad's office and turned on the desk lamp. Then I unlocked the drawer where I had kept a flash drive 6 months previously, just in case. Back when I was silently preparing for a future they never intended to offer me. I logged into the company's systems. Admin access is all under my name. Over the following 3 hours, I diverted every operational account, terminated their logins, transferred ownership of the website, updated the banking information, and verified that every document submitted with the state represented me as the sole owner and management member. I did not steal anything. I took back what was already mine. When I was finished, I neatly arranged the flash drive in the center of Dad's desk. It had everything they needed, including client lists, account summaries, and standard operating procedures. A farewell present. On the front of the drive, I had scribbled 3 words in Sharpie. Good luck without me. Then I packed only one suitcase. The necessities. I did not bang any doors. I didn't create a scene. I've just departed. Quietly and deliberately. By dawn, I was 6 hours away in a rental apartment by the seaside, sipping coffee and watching the tide come in. I turned off my phone after the 7th missed call and did not look back. The first voicemail arrived at 7:12 a.m. It was my mother. Her speech sounded unnaturally calm, as if she was attempting to retain control for an audience. Eli, sweetheart. I think there's some sort of technical issue. Dad can't log into the QuickBooks, and the main website says access denied. Can you call us back when you see this? The second arrived 15 minutes later. Dad, this moment is not tranquil. Furious. Eli, what did you do? I can't get into the business account. I just spoke to Peterson. He says the vendor logins are bouncing. I swear to God if this is some kind of tantrum because of last night. Click. The third voicemail, still Dad, arrived less than an hour later. Only this time, his voice broke. You think this is funny? You think this is revenge? We built this for you. For your future. You owe us. I did not respond to any of them. I sat on the little balcony of my Airbnb, watching waves roll over the sand, laptop open on my lap, and sent out one email. A simple professional note to the top 10 clients informing them that, effective immediately, I was the sole point of contact and managing partner. No drama or slander, just facts. Responses began to arrive within an hour. Most of them were not surprised. A few people congratulated me. Someone even exclaimed, "About time." I didn't check social media again till midday, and there it was, a public Facebook post from Mom. It's always heartbreaking when your own child turns on you. After everything we sacrificed, after everything we gave, you think you know someone. There are no names or context, only vague enough to play the victim. But the comments were great. Aunt Mara's response, "Wait, isn't Eli the one who's been running the business?" Uncle Greg was asking, "Wasn't he living in your basement handling everything while y'all were on vacation last month?" A high school acquaintance I hadn't communicated with in years said, "Wow, you guys really guilt-tripped the golden goose." I did not respond. I did not need to. Seeing them lose control of the story was enough. The next day, they were in a downward spiral. The calls morphed into texts. The texts progressed into emails. First, denial. "We can fix this." Afterwards, shame. "Your father's blood pressure's been up since you left." Threats followed. "This is our company, and we'll take legal action." They would not, and they knew it. Everything was clean and documented. All paper trails led back to me. I'd made sure of it months ago when I noticed Mom gradually attempting to link Dylan to specific bank accounts, just in case I became too demanding. I knew my parents. They never acted impulsively. Everything was calculated, and I was not going to be the fool who waited for another broken promise. The tipping moment occurred 3 days later. Dylan messaged me. Not a call, just a casual, smug little text. "Mom and Dad say you've been overreacting. They want to talk. Let's be adults about this. Then also, FYI, they're thinking about selling the business now. Said I might oversee it. So we should probably coordinate a handoff." I laughed aloud. Actually, I laughed. This man, who had never answered a client call in his life and couldn't even remember his TurboTax password, wanted to orchestrate a handoff, as if I were a dissatisfied temp holding the clipboard. I didn't respond. Instead, I logged into the system and terminated any lingering shadow logins, locked down the servers, forwarded the corporate email through a new secure hosting platform, and created a last firewall layer, one that would alert any strange IP attempting to access crucial files just in case. Within 72 hours, the flash drive I left was no longer usable. The silence that followed, I believe, hit the hardest. No more texts, phone calls, or social media tantrums. Just quiet, a hollow kind of quiet. I expected wrath, maybe even begging, but I didn't realize how much of their identity, how much of their security, hinged on me being in the background, silently supporting everything. When I stopped playing the part, the show crumbled, and they had no idea how to perform without a stagehand. The funny thing is that I did not feel triumphant. I felt free. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up stressed over missed invoices or juggling 10 tasks just to get a glimmer of validation. I wasn't walking on eggshells, trying to avoid inciting passive-aggressive guilt trips disguised as family connection. I took a walk that night. There is no destination, only the fragrance of the ocean and the sound of wind in the palms. And then I realized something. Perhaps they built something for me. But not in the future, as they claimed. Not the life they presented as a carrot. They made something better without intending to. They instilled the resentment I needed to eventually walk away. The narrative isn't over yet. 2 weeks have gone. I hoped that the silence would help me relax and find calm. But this is not what it did. It clarified. Because after the clamor of their demands subsided, the emails stopped flowing in and the phone stopped vibrating with essential family responsibilities. There was time to ponder. Not simply think. Feel. What struck me hardest wasn't rage. It was grief. I would not recover from my grief over time. Over the holidays, I spent my time monitoring spreadsheets rather than creating memories. Over the diploma, which remained in a box in my closet because no one attended the event, I reminded myself over and over again that this was only temporary, that I was simply trying to get through another guilt trip. I had developed their business, birthdays were missed, I skipped dating, I gave up on life, and for what? A Tesla with a bow and the words, "Dylan is always there." That line tormented me, always being present. I'd always been there. When the roof leaked while Dad was away on a conference, I climbed up to cover it in the storm. When Mom lost her client presentation in the Bahamas, I stayed up all night to recreate the PowerPoint deck. When Dylan failed to register his business name, I drove across town to complete the papers under his LLC. My name has never shown on a single document. But that didn't count. What mattered was appearance. What mattered was who made them appear good on Facebook. Whoever turned up for the photo opportunities. Whoever agreed without expecting anything in return. And it had never been me since I didn't know how to play the role. I only knew how to work. How to remain valuable. That is the only type of affection they trained me to anticipate. I had no intention of speaking with any of them again, not for very long. But life does not always ask for your permission. Sometimes it simply appears at your front door. Literally. It was Thursday afternoon when I heard the knock. By then, I had relocated from the Airbnb to a little condo closer to town. Quiet. Simple. Mine. I was in the middle of a call with a client when I looked through the peephole. It was Mira, my sister. I froze. We hadn't spoken in about a year. Not really. She had sent me a happy birthday text in July, but it was generic, the kind you copy-paste between meetings. I wasn't upset with her, but we were never close. She'd always chosen her positions wisely, staying just on everyone's good side without ever getting caught in the center. Now she was at my door. I let the call go to voicemail and then opened it cautiously. She appeared frantic, with her hair wrapped back in a loose knot, circles under her eyes, and wearing the same Patagonia jacket she'd had since college. I did not say anything. Please wait. She cleared her throat. Hey, I didn't know where else to go. I did not move. I was not clear what she wanted. Is there an update? A lecture? Could you please call Mom? Instead, she gave me an envelope. I found this in Dad's drawer, she explained softly. Figured you should see it. I did not take it, not yet. What is it? She paused. A loan agreement, in your name, for business. I blinked. What? Mira nodded. They filed it a few years ago. Faked your signature. Use it to take out a line of credit under your name. It's not small. My stomach sank. I took and opened the envelope. There were 3 photocopies of documents inside. A $70,000 credit line from a private lender obtained 4 years ago. My name was signed in a familiar but somewhat different handwriting, and hidden in the back was a voided check from the same fund made out to Dylan. I sat down slowly. They hadn't just utilized me. They trapped me in debt. I'm sorry, Mira said quietly. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I could scarcely talk. My brain was working the math, interest, term duration, payment due dates, and what they were counting on. That I would not find out until it was too late. I would just keep working. Keep being useful. Until the loan was secretly paid off. I had no idea it existed. That explains why Dad became so quiet when I left. That's why Mom unexpectedly began playing the victim online. They weren't alarmed because I had taken the business. They were in a frenzy because they still required me to repay their obligation. I looked up at Mira. Did you tell them you came here? She shakes her head. Number, and I won't. I examined her for a bit before asking the question I had been dreading since I walked out. Why are you really here? Her eyes filled. And this time, she didn't conceal it. Because I'm tired too, Eli. And with that, the silence was no longer empty. It had company. I did not forgive her, not at the moment. But I didn't send her away because I was coping with more than just betrayal. I was dealing with evidence, with leverage, and, just maybe, with the first true ally I'd ever had in that house. And that's when things get difficult. I did not sleep that night. The loan agreement sat on my kitchen table, like a loaded rifle. The more I read it, the angrier I became, not only at the amount, but also at the arrogance. They falsified my signature, using my name, credit, and future. All while preaching about sacrifice and tossing Tesla keys at Dylan like candy at a parade. It was not a mistake. It was hardly a desperate situation. It was a strategy. They knew exactly what they were doing. And now they were stuck since I had taken over the firm, which was their only source of income left. That loan was technically my responsibility. If I did nothing, the lenders would pursue me. If I went to court, they might get away with it by claiming I had agreed to it years before. My parents had always been adept at distorting the truth, but this time I had proof, and I had something greater than revenge: control. The following morning I sat across from Mira on my small balcony. She appeared frightened, wringing her hands as if she expected me to yell or kick her out. I did not. I offered her a mug of black coffee and talked quietly. I'm going to the lawyer today. She nodded. Do you want me to come? Not yet, but I will ask for a written statement from you. What you found, where you found it, and what you know. She nodded again. Okay. And Mira. She looked up. If I do this, there's no halfway. You understand that? I do. She thought for a moment and said, they did the same thing to me. Smaller scale. A joint credit card they opened when I was in college. I didn't know until my mortgage application got flagged. My jaw constricted. Of course they did. That afternoon I met with a lawyer named Camille, a bright, no-nonsense woman recommended by one of my previous clients. She studied the records, asked a few brief questions, and then stated, this is bank fraud. We can sue. We can press charges. It will be messy, but winnable. Will it protect my credit? If we're aggressive and fast, you'll need to lock your report down and initiate a fraud investigation immediately. It's going to involve paperwork, depositions, likely a civil case on top of the criminal complaint. And what happens to them? Camille's mouth twitched slightly. If the lender decides to pursue charges, they'll be facing felony-level penalties. Prison, depending on how they forge the documents. At the very least, massive financial restitution. I breathed slowly. I did not want to send my parents to prison. I did not want any of this. But I also didn't want to have to bear the consequences of their actions. I did not want to spend the next 10 years rebuilding a credit score that I had never ruined. And I certainly didn't want them to walk away, hands clean, while I paid for their decisions. So I gave Camille the go light. The dominoes fell quickly. I submitted a fraud report. Camille submitted a legitimate CEDS to the lender, accompanied with a declaration of falsified consent. Mira signed an affidavit. By the end of the week, a financial forensics team had validated the signature discrepancies, 3 major areas that did not match any of my legal documents. Camille then filed the case. When it became public, the masks were removed. Mom made the initial call, not sobbing or begging, but screaming. How dare you air this in public? Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family? I put her on speaker and carefully read the statute she had violated. Forgery with intent to defraud a financial institution. Penal Code 134.3, carrying a maximum of 10 years and a $100,000 fine. I can send you the PDF. You think this makes you look good? She retorted. Eli, you're tearing this family apart. No, Mom, I replied. You did that the moment you used my name like a doormat. She hung up. Dylan was the next one to call. His approach was smoother, fake friendly. Hey bro, I think we just need to talk this out, you know? Clear the air. Sure. Let's talk about the canceled check in your name from the fraudulent loan. There is no more sound. Then he said, I didn't know. They just gave it to me. And you didn't think to ask where 70 grand came from? Click. Dad never called. Instead, he wrote a cryptic remark on Facebook about betrayal and greedy children. The typical victim spin. Except this time, it did not land. People weren't purchasing it anymore. Too many people knew the truth. Too many people remembered how long I had been the foundation of their so-called empire. Within 2 weeks, they had gotten the formal summons. I am not sure what they said to one other in private. I'm not sure how they tried to spin it behind closed doors, but their lawyer approached me with an offer. Drop the charges, and they'd sign over the remaining business assets, issue a formal apology, and pay full restitution, including compensation for the interest damage to my credit report. Camille asked what I wanted to do, and for the first time in my life, I hesitated before making a decision. I considered filing charges, witnessing them appear in court, and finally confronting something they couldn't manage. But then I realized I didn't need it anymore. I've already won. I controlled the business and had complete control over my future. Their social circle had become frigid. Dylan, the golden child, was now considered a liability. Mira, who had spent the majority of her life tiptoeing, was suddenly speaking up, telling her own friends what she had gone through. The web they had spun was unraveling from every thread. So I settled, not out of mercy, but out of power. The agreement was sealed. They reimbursed the entire loan, transferred the house deed, yes, even the property I formerly lived in that they claimed was theirs, and signed a legally enforceable statement admitting the fabrication, which would shield me from future claims or retaliation. I handed copies to Camille, Mira, and placed them in a digital lockbox in case something happened later. Then I blocked them. No drama, no final email, just silence. Because I finally realized what they had never taught me. Love is not the same as unconditional loyalty. Love is not about making sacrifices without receiving anything in return. Love does not stay simply because someone claims you owe them. A few months later, on my 30th birthday, I sat on the patio of a little cafe by the sea, drinking coffee with Mira and 2 college friends I'd recently reconnected with. Someone inquired how I was celebrating. I smiled, dug inside my bag, and gave each of them a tiny envelope. Inside was an invitation for the grand opening of Coastal Strategies and Solutions. A new type of business created from the ashes of the old, entirely mine. They laughed and shouted, and one of them drank to a clear slate. I didn't respond. I simply smiled and stared out over the water, knowing deep down that I wasn't just turning 30. I was, finally,